In the dusty archives of the Phoenix Historical Museum, researcher David Martinez made a chilling discovery while digitizing old photographs from Arizona's territorial period. He came across a formal portrait of a woman from 1881 that immediately caught his attention. The woman, sitting in a photographer's studio, looked to be in her mid-20s. She wore modest dark wool clothing typical of frontier life, her hair pulled back simply, and a small silver brooch at her collar. She sat with perfect posture and a gentle smile, but her eyes were unsettling. They seemed to pierce through the camera lens with an intensity that felt almost predatory, a coldness that didn't match her refined appearance. As Martinez adjusted his scanner for more detail, he noticed something else: dark stains on the woman's dress sleeves, marks that had survived more than 140 years of aging. Under magnification, the stains looked like dried blood. The photograph was stamped with Williams Photography Studio, Phoenix, Arizona Territory, and dated October 12, 1881. Written on the back in faded ink was the name Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell. Martinez had seen thousands of frontier photographs, but never one that made him feel so uneasy. The combination of the woman's cold stare and the mysterious stains created an eerie atmosphere. The next morning, Martinez contacted Dr. Sarah Chin, a historian specializing in frontier crime and justice. Upon seeing the photograph, Dr. Chin immediately observed that the stains weren't just from a dress but looked like blood spatters. She explained that they were concentrated on the sleeves and bodice, suggesting the woman had been present during a violent act. Martinez and Dr. Chin began investigating Eleanor Hartwell's identity through territorial records and newspaper archives. They uncovered a disturbing story. Eleanor had arrived in Phoenix in early 1881, claiming to be a widow from the East seeking a fresh start. She quickly became a respected figure in the community, organizing charitable events and helping struggling women adjust to frontier life. Local newspapers praised her kindness and generosity. But something seemed off. Between March and October of 1881, 7 women had disappeared without a trace. All of them were described as transients or women with uncertain reputations, whose disappearances attracted little attention. What stood out, however, was the fact that each of these women had last been seen with a refined lady who had offered them assistance. The descriptions matched Eleanor Hartwell perfectly. She seemed to target the most vulnerable women, those with no local connections or those fleeing difficult situations. Dr. Chen's further research into territorial records revealed a chilling pattern. These women hadn't just vanished, they had been hunted. The first victim, Sarah Mills, was a young woman from Missouri who had lost her family to a cholera outbreak. She was last seen accepting a domestic work offer from a well-dressed woman who claimed to represent a prominent Phoenix family. The pattern continued with more victims: Carmen Rodriguez, a Mexican woman escaping an abusive husband, and others, all isolated and approached by the same mysterious woman. None of them were seen again. Martinez discovered that Eleanor was methodical in her approach. She spent weeks observing potential victims, learning their vulnerabilities before making contact. She presented herself as a charitable Christian woman, making her offers of help appear both credible and morally admirable. She was a perfect predator, using the women's desperate circumstances to gain their trust. The researchers uncovered evidence that Eleanor Hartwell had been disposing of her victims in the harsh Sonoran desert surrounding Phoenix. In 1882, flash floods had exposed human remains in a remote canyon. At first, officials attributed the deaths to Apache raids or natural disasters, but personal belongings, jewelry, clothing, letters, belonging to several of the missing women were found, though the clues were never thoroughly investigated. This allowed Eleanor to continue her killing spree unnoticed. The photograph from October 1881, which had started Martinez's investigation, took on a new, chilling significance. It had been taken just days after Eleanor's 7th and final victim disappeared. The photo now marked the end of Eleanor Hartwell's crimes, but not for the reasons anyone would have expected. Her last victim, a young teacher named Mary Sullivan, would accidentally expose Eleanor's dark secrets through her own attempt to survive. Mary had arrived in Phoenix in September 1881, seeking work after losing her teaching position in Colorado. She was exactly the type of vulnerable woman Eleanor preferred: alone, desperate, and unlikely to be missed quickly. Eleanor approached her with the usual offer of employment, but Mary was more cautious than Eleanor's previous victims. Before accepting Eleanor's offer, she wrote detailed letters to her sister in Denver, describing her benefactor and the unusual urgency Eleanor insisted on. The letters revealed Mary's concerns about Eleanor. She wrote, "The lady seems kind, but there is something in her manner that troubles me. She asks many questions about whether anyone knows of my whereabouts, and insists I must come with her today without delay." Dr. Chen later discovered these letters in the Colorado State Archives, where they had been preserved among family papers. Mary had also arranged a safety measure that Eleanor had not anticipated. She told the hotel clerk that if she didn't return within 2 days, he should contact the territorial marshal. This simple precaution would turn out to be Eleanor's undoing. When Mary failed to return, the hotel clerk alerted Marshal William Thompson, who started the first serious investigation into the disappearances. Thompson was an experienced lawman, having served in Kansas before coming to Arizona, and immediately recognized the patterns that previous investigators had missed. His investigation led him straight to Eleanor as she was preparing to dispose of Mary's body. The confrontation in the desert would bring Eleanor's crimes to light and expose the full extent of her actions. Marshal Thompson's investigation led him to Eleanor's modest home on the outskirts of Phoenix. What he found there shocked even him. While the house looked respectable on the outside, the interior told a different story. In the cellar, Thompson found evidence of torture and murder, blood-stained clothing, personal items from the missing women, and tools for dismembering bodies. Most horrifying was Eleanor's meticulous record-keeping. She had maintained a journal documenting each murder, describing her victims' final moments with disturbing detachment. One journal entry read, "Sarah Mills begged prettily before the end. She promised to tell no one if I released her. They all make the same promises. They all lie." The journal revealed that Eleanor had been luring victims to her home, pretending to offer temporary shelter. Once alone, she would reveal her true nature, subjecting her victims to torture before killing them. Thompson also uncovered how Eleanor had been disposing of the bodies. She transported remains to various locations in the Sonoran Desert, using her knowledge of flash flood patterns to scatter evidence over a wide area. When Thompson arrived at Eleanor's house to arrest her, he found her in the process of loading Mary's body into a cart. The confrontation that followed became legendary in Arizona's territorial history. Eleanor showed no remorse when caught. She seemed almost relieved that her secret was finally exposed. "You cannot understand the burden I have carried," she told Thompson. "These women were lost souls who would have died anyway. I simply hastened their inevitable fate." She spoke about the murders as if they were acts of mercy, claiming she had freed the women from lives of poverty and desperation. Her arrest on October 15, 1881, just 3 days after posing for the photograph, ended one of the most brutal killing sprees in territorial history. Eleanor Hartwell's trial in the spring of 1882 became a sensational event, drawing widespread newspaper coverage from across the American West. It represented something unprecedented in frontier justice. A serial killer who had hidden her crimes behind the facade of Christian charity and feminine respectability. Dr. Chen found extensive coverage of the trial in newspaper archives throughout Arizona and neighboring territories. The Phoenix Herald, which had once praised Eleanor Hartwell's charitable work, now struggled to reconcile her public image with the horrific evidence presented in court. The newspaper's editor wrote, "How could a woman who appeared so refined and godly commit such savage brutality?" The case forced everyone to confront the unsettling truth that evil can sometimes wear the most innocent disguises. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of Eleanor's guilt. In addition to the physical evidence found in her home, witnesses testified that they had seen her with several of the victims shortly before their disappearances. The most damaging testimony came from Mary Sullivan, who had survived Eleanor's initial attack. Mary described in chilling detail how Eleanor had behaved during the torture. She recalled, "She spoke to me as if she were a teacher instructing a student. She explained that pain was necessary for purification and that I should be grateful for the opportunity to suffer before dying." Eleanor's defense attorney argued that she was mentally ill and suffering from delusions, believing she was helping her victims. But Eleanor's own testimony contradicted this defense. She spoke clearly and rationally about her crimes, showing no signs of mental impairment. "I regret nothing," Eleanor declared. "These women came to me seeking salvation, and I provided it. Death is the only true escape from the suffering of this world." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all 7 counts of murder. Judge Harrison ruled that Eleanor would be hanged, making her one of the few women executed in territorial Arizona. Eleanor Hartwell was executed on June 15, 1882, and crowds from all over the territory came to witness the hanging of Arizona's most notorious female killer. Accounts described her final moments as consistent with her behavior during the trial. She showed no remorse and continued to justify her actions. Martinez found detailed coverage of the execution in newspaper archives. The Phoenix Herald reported that Eleanor had spent her final night writing letters, not to apologize for her crimes, but to defend them as necessary acts of mercy. In her final statement, she wrote, "I go to my death knowing I freed 7 souls from earthly suffering. History will vindicate my actions when the world understands that death is preferable to the poverty and desperation these women faced." Even as she stood on the gallows, Eleanor maintained her composure and delusions. When asked if she had any final words, she reportedly said, "I forgive you for not understanding my mission. Perhaps in time society will recognize the service I provided." Her execution marked the end of one of the most disturbing criminal cases in territorial history. However, Eleanor's impact on Arizona continued long after her death. The case brought to light the vulnerability of women on the frontier and how easily predators could exploit the social expectations of feminine virtue. Dr. Chen noted that the Hartwell case forever changed how people viewed charitable activities in frontier communities. After the case, people became much more suspicious of anyone offering help to vulnerable women. The assumption of innocence based on gender and social standing was permanently damaged. The case also influenced law enforcement practices throughout the West. Marshall Thompson's investigation methods became a model for handling similar cases, emphasizing the importance of taking missing persons reports seriously, regardless of a victim's social status. Most importantly, the Hartwell case showed that serial murder was not limited to male perpetrators or urban areas. Eleanor's use of supposed charitable motives to gain her victims' trust would establish a pattern that would be recognized in similar cases for years to come. The photograph that had initially caught Martinez's attention now took on a completely different meaning. It was the portrait of a killer posing proudly just days after her final murder. Martinez and Dr. Chen's research revealed that Eleanor Hartwell's case had been deliberately minimized in historical records. Frontier society, uncomfortable with the idea of a female serial killer, had quietly archived or destroyed many documents related to her crimes, contributing to her near disappearance from Arizona's historical memory. The researchers discovered that several prominent Phoenix families had requested that Eleanor's name be removed from official records. Her connection to charitable organizations had embarrassed community leaders who had initially supported her work. There was a deliberate effort to erase Eleanor Hartwell from history. Dr. Chen observed that people wanted to forget they had been deceived by her, and that their own charitable organizations had unknowingly provided cover for her crimes. This historical amnesia explained why Eleanor's photograph had remained unidentified in museum archives for so long. Without context, she appeared to be just another frontier woman whose story had been lost to time. Martinez found evidence that Williams Photography Studio had originally labeled the portrait with Eleanor's real name and the date of the session. However, someone had later removed these identifications, leaving only the false name, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, that Eleanor had used while in Phoenix. Further research revealed that Eleanor's true identity had never been established. Investigations into her background revealed that Eleanor Hartwell was an assumed name, and her origins remained mysterious even at the time of her execution. Letters found in territorial archives suggested that Eleanor Hartwell may have committed similar crimes in other locations before arriving in Phoenix. References to unfortunate incidents in Colorado and New Mexico indicated that Arizona might not have been the start of her killing spree. It seemed likely that she had been a serial killer long before reaching Arizona. Martinez concluded that Phoenix was merely where she was finally caught. This discovery raised disturbing questions about how many other victims Eleanor might have had, and whether her 7 confirmed murders in Arizona were just a fraction of her total crimes. The photograph, with its evidence of blood stains and Eleanor's cold, satisfied expression, now served as a chilling reminder of how easily evil could hide behind respectability. Martinez and Dr. Chen's research caught the attention of the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, which specializes in studying historical serial killers. Agent Rebecca Torres reviewed their findings and concluded that Eleanor Hartwell fit the profile of an organized serial killer, operating decades before such behavior was formally recognized by law enforcement. Eleanor was remarkably sophisticated in her methods. Agent Torres noted that she understood victim selection, evidence disposal, and the importance of maintaining a credible public persona, traits typically associated with modern serial killers, but used by Eleanor as early as 1881. The FBI analysis confirmed that Eleanor's pattern of targeting vulnerable women and using charitable pretenses matched similar cases from the late 19th century. Agent Torres suggested that Eleanor might represent an early example of what criminologists now call angel of death killers, individuals who use positions of trust and authority to gain access to victims. Advanced digital enhancement of the 1881 photograph revealed disturbing new details that had been invisible to earlier investigators. The blood stains on Eleanor's dress were more extensive than initially thought, and her expression showed subtle signs of satisfaction, clear only under magnification. The photograph, taken just after a kill, now held new significance. Agent Torres concluded, the timing, the blood stains, and her expression all indicate that she posed for this portrait while still experiencing the psychological high associated with her crimes. The FBI's analysis also suggested that Eleanor's journal entries and her behavior during the trial indicated she was suffering from what modern psychology would recognize as psychopathy. Her complete lack of empathy, her grandiose self-perception, and her inability to accept responsibility for her actions matched classic psychopathic patterns. This new perspective on Eleanor's crimes provided fresh insights into her motivations and methods. Rather than being driven by desperation or mental illness, she appeared to be a calculating predator who took pleasure in manipulating and killing vulnerable women. The research culminated in a comprehensive report that restored Eleanor Hartwell to her rightful place in Arizona's criminal history, ensuring her victims would finally be remembered and their stories told. The photograph of Eleanor Hartwell became one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the study of 19th-century serial murder. Martinez donated the image to the National Museum of Crime and Punishment, where it serves as a centerpiece in an exhibition on historical serial killers and the evolution of criminal investigation. The case had a lasting impact on how historians approach frontier crime and missing persons from the territorial period. Eleanor's ability to operate undetected for months highlighted the need to re-examine other unsolved disappearances from the era with modern investigative techniques. Dr. Chen published a comprehensive book about Eleanor's crimes, titled Behind the Gentle Smile: The Eleanor Hartwell Murders and the Dark Side of Frontier Charity. The book restored the identities and stories of Eleanor's 7 known victims, ensuring that women like Sarah Mills and Carmen Rodriguez would be remembered as individuals, not anonymous statistics. The research also prompted the Arizona Historical Society to establish a database of missing persons from the territorial period, recognizing that many disappearances previously attributed to natural causes or Indian raids might actually have been unsolved murders. Most importantly, Eleanor's case serves as a reminder that serial murder is not a modern phenomenon, and that predators have always been skilled at exploiting social expectations and charitable institutions to access victims. Her photograph, which deceptively portrayed feminine respectability while hiding murderous intent, continues to shock viewers more than 140 years after it was taken. The blood stains on Eleanor's dress, initially dismissed as artifacts of old photography, have now been confirmed as genuine evidence of violence. Her cold, calculating stare, captured forever in the portrait, offers a glimpse into the mind of a killer who felt no remorse for her actions. Eleanor Hartwell's legacy is one of deception, violence, and the danger of assuming that evil cannot hide behind a gentle smile. Her photograph serves as a permanent reminder that the most dangerous predators are often those who appear the most trustworthy, and that true justice requires looking beyond surface appearances to uncover the darkness some people carry within them. The 7 women who died at Eleanor's hands have finally received the recognition they deserved. Their stories are preserved as warnings about the vulnerability of those seeking help and the responsibility society bears to protect its most defenseless members. The haunting legacy of Eleanor Hartwell serves as a chilling reminder that evil can often disguise itself in the most unexpected forms. Behind the guise of charity and feminine virtue, she preyed on the vulnerable, leaving a trail of destruction and heartbreak. Her case reshapes our understanding of serial crime in the 19th century, illustrating that predators can exploit societal expectations to manipulate and destroy lives. Through modern forensic techniques, the truth about Eleanor's crimes has been unveiled, restoring the memories of her victims who were once forgotten. This story underscores the importance of vigilance, the need to question surface appearances, and the responsibility society holds in protecting its most vulnerable members. As we reflect on Eleanor Hartwell's disturbing journey, we are reminded that justice requires a deeper look into the darkness that some people conceal, often behind the most innocent smiles. Her case has forever changed how we view crime, and how the past continues to influence our understanding of human evil.